We have finally made it. The NFL is officially back, so you know what that means. 18 players who will change your week one outcome in fantasy football. We'll cover starts and sits, different quarterbacks, tight ends for you to stream this week. Let's buckle up, y'all. It's time to set those lineups. And fellas, we're going to shake up how we do this episode this year. Last year, we started with the quarterbacks, did a start and a sit, worked our way down to the tight end position to start and sit. We're not going to do starts and sits for quarterbacks this year. We're going to just do streaming options instead. If you're in a pinch of guys you should be looking at. But however, we will keep our running back and wide receiver starts and sits. So let's start with the running backs, Cameron. Despite this puzzle of the Jacksonville Jaguars this offseason, you're willing to start Travis Etienne in week one.
Yeah, and it really comes down to, I don't think Carolina made additions to their defense that's going to take them inside the top 25 rush defenses this year. And we know Liam Cohen's going to want to establish the run. Like you said, it is a puzzle. I'm not guaranteeing that Travis Etienne is for sure the bell cow, is for sure the guy who's going to lead in rush attempts. That could be Tank Bigsby. But what I do know is that week one, for sure, he is going to be at least the lead receiving back. He is going to be a guy he's going to get carries, but Liam Cohen, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, were third in running back receptions last year. Etienne had 73 back in 2023. So we know that's the role he can fit in, which is just fantasy points. And that's what you're eating up. I think they're going to try and get this offense moving quickly. Lots of different things. I think Etienne's going to kind of be a big piece of that. So I know it might not be exactly what you're expecting when you're looking at it and you're going, wow, he only had 11 rush attempts. But I think there's enough other things moving around where the fantasy points are going to come. And for me, I have him as running back 26 this week. So I think he's borderline running back 2.
Right. And so when we're talking about starts at the running back position, we're going to try and not give you super obvious picks. I think my pick is probably going to be the most obvious out of the bunch. And even then, I think it's worth having a conversation around. Ty, are you good playing Travis Etienne this week? Would you rather play like a Tank Bigsby instead? What's your comfort level here?
I think with the uncertainty of Travis Hunter and how much offense he will play, I think you can bank on some receiving work going to Etienne. And because of that, I'm okay starting him. I'm not forcing him into my lineups because I think there's a reason why you took Etienne so late and you're not going to start him over some of the other guys that you took earlier in your drafts. But again, if you're in a pinch, Etienne's not a bad option. Matchup is good. I can see the workload kind of producing for fantasy in week one. So yeah, I'm okay with Etienne.
Now we're providing one of these videos every single week for you all. Weeks 1 through 18, players who will change your outcome for better or worse. So if you want to make sure you get that in your feed throughout the offseason, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell as well. So you know when all of our newest content is out. We're not just doing starts and sits each week. We got trade targets for you. We're going to react to your takeaways from every single week that you can be a part of by subscribing to our channel. So we appreciate your support. We're going to help you provide. We're going to provide you insights to help you win your league this year. But really, we want to remind you of the fun and camaraderie that comes with playing fake football with your friends. It's what united us three in our friendship. We know it's been the same for a lot of you out there. So we'd appreciate it if you join us for the ride that we're going on here. Ty, I'll kick it right back to you because I don't mind Tyrone Tracy as a running back to start this week, especially with Cam Skadoo kind of nicked up during the preseason, and maybe he just continues hanging on to the momentum that he closed out last year with.
Yeah, I think a lot of people forget that Washington's run defense was not good last year. They allowed the third most rushing yards to opponents last year. Not saying that Tyrone Tracy is going to go absolutely crazy, but I think a lot of people will go, oh, it's the Giants offense and they're playing Washington. I still think that Tyrone Tracy, no matter how this game goes, whether it's close or if it's kind of a big win for Washington, Tyrone Tracy is going to be on the field in some way with his rushing work and also in the receiving game. I just don't think that Cam Skadoo, for as much as we think that he's a threat in the second half of the year, I don't think that we're going to really see it in the first game of the year. So I'm okay. I feel very similarly about Tyrone Tracy as I do for Travis Etienne. Like if you're in a pinch and you're looking at Tyrone Tracy on your bench, I'm okay kind of throwing him in your flex.
Yeah, I think the flex is the perfect spot for him because his projection over on Underdog, half PPR format, which you could take the higher or lower on over there, more from them later, is 10.15 points. Like that is flex worthy in my mind, Cameron, if you want to fire him up this week.
For sure. And like you said, I think the fact that Scadaboo missed as much as he did in the preseason is why you're starting Tracy here. That's the key, because he's going to be the guy that takes over. We saw him thrive in that role when he did get the volume last year. I say thrive, but it wasn't like putting up world
Right.
beater stats, but he was good enough. He was serviceable that, like I said, you can plug him into your flex and you feel fine about it. You're going to get 10, 11 points. You're not going to see a 30 burger out there, but you're going to get points, and he's a safe play in the flex. So I would agree. He's a guy I for sure would fire up, because if you drafted him, this is probably the best week to start him.
Yeah, no, 100%. This is the one week you do want to make sure Tyrone Tracy hits your lineup, because it might not be guaranteed in future weeks. I want to have a little bit of a conversation on RJ Harvey. I think he's definitely startable against the Tennessee Titans. Made a few changes along the defensive line this offseason, but going back to last year, they allowed the 12th most fantasy points to running backs, the 10th most rushing yards to running backs as well. Now, I'm not trying to copy and paste and say that's exactly how it's going to be this year, but the Denver Broncos are also massive favorites at home here in week 1. I think there's plenty of opportunity to make sure RJ Harvey gets a healthy amount of touches in week 1. And I'm not going to act like the Tennessee Titans are the most stingy defense out there. But if Sean Payton wants to get RJ Harvey's legs underneath him, they're playing with the league. This is the perfect game in my mind to get RJ Harvey his reps when, man, Cam Ward, tough game to start your NFL career with, going up against Pat Surtain and this Denver Broncos defense. To me, this screams the Broncos are playing with the lead in this game. I think Sean Payton wants to get RJ Harvey his reps early, as I mentioned. Surprisingly projected on Underdog 2.5 less fantasy points this week than Tyrone Tracy. To me, I think that's a mistake. I'm willing to fire up RJ Harvey. Maybe not as like a super strong running back to you, but I wouldn't surprise me at all, Ty. I'll start with you here on this one if he finishes as like the RB 24 or 25 this week.
Yeah, totally. I think the Tennessee run defense isn't as stingy. When you look at a defensive front of T'Vondre Sweat and Sebastian Joseph Day, and then especially Jeffrey Simmons, you think like maybe this isn't the right matchup, but you said it. Like Denver can get out early and quick and early, I should say. And if that happens, I'm going to expect to see more RJ Harvey, and that is a pretty nice transition to my sit, which we'll get to eventually. But RJ Harvey, the skill set of being a weapon in the passing game, all that stuff, like RJ Harvey could get some more run before when the game gets out of hand.
Right. So, but before we get into your sit, I do want to make sure Cameron gets in here. Well, yeah. Well, let's transition to Cameron. Let's talk about your sit now. We'll transition to running back sits of the week. Gosh, that was a messy transition, but you people will bear with me, right? The people are forgiving over on YouTube. You're okay sitting our boy Nicholas Jamal Chubb in week 1 of the NFL season against playing Los Angeles this week.
Yeah, and if you look at the underdog props we have over on YouTube, you can kind of see why he's projected for 44.5 rushing yards, and they have an increased prop for him to go over 1 reception. He's just not going to get any receiving work. That's what it comes down to. Of maybe he is the lead back. He gets 12 attempts, sees maybe 4 yards per carry, and gets you 48 rushing yards. But if he doesn't find the end zone, he's a 4.8. He's getting you 4.8 fantasy points. Right. That's the outcome I'm envisioning for Nick Chubb, that he probably will be the lead back. I don't think they score, a rushing touchdown. Los Angeles has got a pretty decent defensive front. And so I'm just pessimistic on, just because he is the lead guy doesn't mean that, hey, he's an instant start. Let's look at the role he has. It's not great. And he's probably not going to be for sure the one. They're going to be switching him in and out with Dameon Pierce, Woody Marks, who we talked about in the last episode.
And this Rams defensive line, became Tyler. I normally call you Ty. I felt weird calling you Tyler, but this Rams defensive line, yeah, sorry, full government name coming out here for Ty.
Oh boy,
he's in trouble. No, the Rams defensive line by the end of last season turned vicious. And you look at this Houston Texans offensive line that's completely revamped isn't even the correct word. It has changed almost entirely, and not necessarily with better talent coming into this year. Just knowing how this Rams defensive line can get after it, Ty, it just doesn't spark any optimism for me for Nick Chubb.
No, I just think what's to say we don't see Dameon Pierce? What's to say we don't see Woody Marks? Like there's been no signal that this is Nick Chubb's backfield. And you can just look at quotes about or from D'Amico Ryans when they talk about the run game and specifically like Nick Chubb. And he's like, yeah, we got guys that can kind of, play a role and can do the job for us. And it's like, oh, that's that screams we're going to try to get, that screams we're going to get as many guys in the backfield as we can. It doesn't mean that there's going to be just one guy. And maybe this is just my way of saying like I just don't expect to see the same Nick Chubb, even though we are another year removed from the knee injury. I just don't think it's going to be the same Nick Chubb as years past.
Sure. I would love to be wrong. I really
totally.
I hope it's a 100-yard game, 2 touch. Like I hope I'm wrong here.
To turn back the clock for Nick Chubb would just be so much fun. I no other player I'd be happy to be wrong on for week 1, but yeah, there's no need to force Nick Chubb into your lineup this week. Ty, we'll come back to your sit here because we talked about RJ Harvey as a start. Yet you think J.K. Dobbins can still be a sit at the same time?
Yeah, because of the exact reason that I think we see more RJ Harvey. I think this, like, essentially you're banking on J.K. Dobbins, honestly, scoring a touchdown, which is very possible. But then at the same time, the touchdown is what can ultimately save your week, because I just don't think that it's going to be a ton of work for J.K. Dobbins in week 1. Maybe to sum it up even more, I just don't think that you're going to miss out on a whole lot from J.K. Dobbins. Like, I don't think you're going to see an 80 rushing yard game and 2 touchdowns from J.K. Dobbins. I think J.K. Dobbins, for being the starter, at least in week 1 for Denver, you're okay keeping him on your bench and not feeling like you need to force him into your lineup. Yes, you want to start the starters, but that doesn't mean that you need to, again, get cute with things and force J.K. Dobbins into your lineup.
Yeah, I think if this game were going to be more competitive, the Broncos 8.5-point favorites over Tennessee this week. I mean, that's not nothing. I feel like if this is a tightly contested game, you want more guys, keep the defense guessing a little bit more. Sure, you throw J.K. Dobbins in there, but I think with the pass catching chops that you're going to see from RJ Harvey, he's just going to be the easier back to keep on the field. And again, Sean Payton's smart enough. Let's just get the young guy his reps, and then we can bring in J.K. Dobbins. We do need to change a pace if we need to give the defense a few different looks out of the backfield, keep them on their toes. I just don't think you're going to need that in this week 1 matchup. And I don't know if Dobbins gives you enough upside either to force him in. I agree with that. I'm curious to hear both of your thoughts on my sit. I think you can sit DeAndre Swift in week 1. I understand you might not be able to. If you can afford to sit DeAndre Swift, though, this Minnesota Vikings defensive line it's made some phenomenal additions throughout the offseason. I know they let go of Harrison Phillips as well, but traded Harrison Phillips. I shouldn't say they let go of him. They traded him, but apparently they have a lot of trust in their depth. And with how vicious Brian Flores is in bringing pressure and stacking the box, look, if he can shut down the run and just say, hey, Caleb Williams, if you can prove to beat us while you're learning this new Ben Johnson way, go for it, by all means. I just don't think DeAndre Swift is a good enough talent to overcome the improvements that Minnesota made along the defensive line this offseason to overcome Brian Flores. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you Kyle Monangai or Roshan Johnson is going to overtake DeAndre Swift, but we all know how Ben Johnson likes to play his running back rooms. It's not in favor of strictly DeAndre Swift. Like, honestly, if we see like 55% snap share for DeAndre Swift this week and the other 45% going to Roshan Johnson and Kyle Monangai, like, honestly, I really wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, my worry is just that he's going to be too involved in the receiving game. That's going to be a lot of checkdowns to DeAndre Swift, that he's going to be fantasy relevant, that there's going to be design plays for him. I think I'm still starting him. I think I understand though where you're saying, because I saw him and was like, ooh, I get a little spicier and pick him as a sit. And so I understand where you're coming from. I just don't know if I'd have the cojones to necessarily put him on my bench week 1 after drafting him, probably as my running back 2, maybe my running back 3.
If you can afford to.
Yes.
Right. If you can afford to sit DeAndre Swift, I'm okay if you do it week 1, Ty. Where do you land?
I feel like this could very well depend on if he scores again. Just like how I talked about for J.K. Dobbins, he could probably score in that game just because Denver is going to likely win that game by a very large margin. In a closer contest, DeAndre Swift could again walk away with 4 receptions for 40 yards and then add in like, his rush attempt line of 14.5. Let's say he gets 15 carries. He's probably going to get like 4 yards a carry at best just against his Vikings run defense. So ultimately then he does need to find the end zone. And I just struggle to think that he will in this matchup.
Mhm.
And maybe that's too cut and dry to say, again, yes or no on touchdowns, but I that's what it comes down to for me in a closely contested matchup. Is he going to find the end zone? I just don't think he will.
Touchdowns make the difference at the running back position. If you hit pay dirt, you score 6 points. It's a pretty good base to build off of for the rest of the week. So it's not a bad barometer to use if you're trying to gauge how successful a running back could or couldn't be on a given week. Again, like a James Conner in week 1, I'm very confidently telling you to play James Conner ahead of DeAndre Swift. You drafted James Conner ahead of DeAndre Swift, but he's one where instead of talking about him as like a low end running back 2, we're talking about him as a very, very strong running back 2 this week because of his scoring potential against the New Orleans Saints. Let's move on to wide receivers now, though, fellas. We've covered running back starts and sits. Let's do our wide receiver starts and sits. Cameron, I'm not going to lie. I'm disappointed in you. But go ahead. You can tell the people why Keenan Allen is a start for you this week, and then I'll tell you why you're wrong.
Because he's the wide receiver 2 for Kansas City. Because they're
I
playing.
swear I've heard this before out of you. I think every time you talk about Keenan Allen, that's how you start. He's the wide receiver 2.
He's the wide receiver 2 who gets a ton of volume. I don't know what else we want. Like he's got a good connection with Justin Herbert. He has rapport with him. He gets open. He catches the ball. He can find his way to the end zone. He's going to be healthy week 1, right? That all these things are kind of coming up. For me, it's Keenan Allen that you're going to get more worried as the season goes on because he is 33 years old, that it's going to start to break down. But earlier in the year, I have the confidence that I'm looking at these lines too that Underdog's got here. 3.5 receptions. I'm going to take higher. 33.5 receiving yards.
Here.
I'm going to take higher. Half a touchdown. I'm going to sprinkle a little on the higher because I think he's a guy that they're going to trust opposite of Ladd McConkey. I think he's going to be in the slot. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And everybody's going to go, oh, Keenan Allen's relevant again. And it's like, yes, he never wasn't relevant. And he for sure is relevant again.
Can we do a Canes bet on the fantasy points line over on Underdog?
Deal.
You got the higher on 7.25. I'm taking the lower. I don't think he scores 7 points. Half PPR points. Easily.
Easily. I got him over 10 half PPR points.
No way. Half PPR. This is half PPR we're talking about on
10.
Underdog.
I'll take him over 10 for sure. 6 catches, 70 yards. Yeah, I think he is that.
You're delusional, Ty. Can you help me out here?
He can't help you.
I think what this comes down to is how often he's going to be in the slot. Because if he's in the slot,
McConkey, permanent perimeter wide receiver.
Because maybe it's not so much how often he will play in the slot. It's how Kansas City is going to be utilizing Trent McDuffie. If they're just going to have him shadowing Ladd McConkey, then yeah, Keenan Allen could definitely have a field day. But if Trent McDuffie is going to be primary slot and Keenan Allen is going to be in the slot more often, then I kind of have that it's going to get kind of dicey if we're going to hit that 7.25 mark. So I see this going I see it leaning more towards Trent McDuffie is going to be shadowing Ladd McConkey and Keenan Allen will have a field day out of the slot then.
I don't want to belabor and debate Keenan Allen any further because that's really not who the people came here for. If you are in a pinch somehow, I think
he's a top 36 wide receiver. I think he's a wide receiver 3 this week.
For this week?
Yes.
Ahead of guys like Ricky Pearsall.
No way.
I would start Ricky, but I think it's close.
You don't have either of them ranked right now, but you've ranked 34 receivers already, so it's getting kind of close.
I was just finishing. I have him over Jacoby Myers this week. I have him over Travis Hunter this week. I'd consider him over Matthew Golden this week.
Let's go.
I will stand on like
man.
I'm 100% ready to eat my words.
Let's go.
But I think he is a top 36 wide receiver, and I wouldn't be shocked if he's top 30.
Oh, brother.
Let's go.
That's a take. That's a take to have. And Keenan Allen has forever been your guy, so I also can't really hold it against you for having that take because you might be love blind here with Keenan Allen, but that's okay. I'm willing to be proven wrong on this one. Ty, I'll kick it to you here now. Michael Pittman, like, look, man, I think you can start worse players in your flex this week. I'll let you explain why.
What if I told you that for as much as people like the player that is Josh Downs, what if I told you that it's actually Michael Pittman Jr. that's the most healthy receiver between the two, which is kind of funny to say because the dude was playing with a near broken back last year. And
with a broken back, it was.
Yeah. I should say, because
near broken.
Yeah. Well, like, because with all the talk about, I'm just going to go on a side tangent. With all the talk about like all the epidurals that players are getting now with back injuries,
Beaver tranquilizers.
I'm just saying, like, Michael Pittman might have kept a lot of medical professionals in business.
Yeah. He just popped 2 Tylenol and was back in it. That dude is tough as nails.
Yeah, ibuprofen means I be playing. Yes, that's what that means.
Exactly.
So Michael Pittman Jr. being the healthiest receiver, and I'm going to say at least the guy that's going to be on the field the most when we look at Pittman, Downs, A.D. Mitchell, who, look, I love me an A.D. Mitchell dart throw in the 18th round of my best ball drafts, but then Alec Pierce as well. Like, Michael Pittman Jr. should be the wide receiver 1, at least for this team in terms of snap count. Now you got to factor in like Tyler Warren is going to be involved in this offense as well. But the biggest component is that Michael Pittman Jr. going up against a Miami secondary that is depleted, to say the least. I think he can take advantage of the matchup here against Miami. And with Daniel Jones at quarterback, he's got at least a tad bit of a more competent thrower of the football compared to Anthony Richardson. So again, if you're just looking for a dart throw and you're in a pinch, like Michael Pittman, I would say is like the number 1 in a pinch start of the week.
Can I just read you the Miami Dolphins starting cornerbacks
Please
for this year? The best name ever.
Storm Duck. Oh, it's Storm Duck. Stone Duck.
It is Storm Duck. Storm Duck plays left cornerback for this team. Then you have Rasul Douglas on the other side. Then you have Jason Marshall Jr., who's a rookie this year. You got Minka Fitzpatrick playing safety. But the point being is, like, this is a secondary you can totally feast on this year, man, for the Miami Dolphins. So, yeah, if the Colts are going to be moving the ball through the air, Josh Downs not 100%. I think it is going to be Michael Pittman who probably is the main beneficiary of that. Cam, you said you'd rather play Keenan Allen over Matthew Golden. I think that's just criminal. In a matchup with the Detroit Lions that has the potential to produce one of the highest scoring games of the week, with Jaden Reed still nicked up as well, with a lot of unexciting weapons on this Green Bay Packers offense. Last season, the Detroit Lions gave up the most yards to the wide receiver position. I'm just willing to bet on a game that I think could be high volume passing. Well, they're going to go back and forth with one another here, a divisional matchup to kick off the season. And the Detroit Lions, not terrible in the secondary. You got Terry Arnold in his second year and Brian Branch at the safety position. DJ Reed on this roster as well. I'm just like not too scared off for an opportunity here for Matthew Golden to potentially put up points. Like, to me, he is a flex option this week, in 12, 14-man leagues where I'm willing to throw him in there because if he catches a long touchdown in week 1, people are already going to be saying, yep, Matthew Golden already worth the 23rd pick in the NFL draft.
Yeah, I think he's a flex option for sure. I don't think he's a bad play. I'm just not banking on the rookie in his first divisional matchup where he's the player that defenses are going to be keen on being the guy that breaks out and gets a top 24 start. I still think he's I still think he's a start. I think that he should be in your lineup this week because, like you said, there is the potential for that. I myself is just not banking on. I think he's going to get enough volume where you're not going to be hurting if you start him. I just don't think that it's I think it's very unlikely that we see a top 24 performance from Matthew Golden this week.
Sure. I'm not going to sit here and tell you should expect top 24, but do I think Matthew Golden could be one of the stronger flex plays this week? He definitely, Ty, in my mind, is one of the highest upside flex plays this week.
Matthew Golden can absolutely be one of the top flex plays this week. I think if everything goes perfectly, he gets the volume, he finds the end zone. Like, yeah, he can absolutely be a top 24 guy. Just you look at this Green Bay offense, Jaden Reed is a question mark. The Jaden Reed situation is weird to me. Like, yeah. I can't get a read on that situation at all. Matthew Golden and Romeo Doubs are likely going to be the two receivers that are going to be on the field the most. So I just see an opportunity where he can be a top 24 guy, but he has a decent safety net, which is weird to say for a Packers receiver, that I can sit here and go, he can actually be like a top 36 guy, that he can be a nice little flex play this week.
Yeah, the Packers-Lions game has an over-under of 47.5 points. A lot of other games fluttering in that 46.5 range as well. But the only game with a higher projected point total is Bills-Ravens at 50.5 this week. So, yeah, if you're expecting fireworks, you're expecting an all-out, maybe not an all-out air raid, but you're expecting a lot of points to be scored as defenses kind of get their feet underneath them or trying to figure out how these offenses are functioning coming into the year. Yeah, I think you could totally see Matthew Golden catch a long, hit that higher on 21.5 longest reception in this game as well. Now that drafts have closed over on Underdog because the regular season has began, this is the time where we really start looking at pick'ems too, to really start help formulating our takes for each given week. So let's take a break. We'll hear from our friends over at Underdog and how you can play in their pick'em lobby. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Underdog, where you can get into the game this season playing pick'em. It's extremely simple. Just pick higher or lower on two or more of your favorite players. For example, I'll pick the higher on Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and Xavier Worthy. If I played $10 and got all three of them right, I would win $60 just by watching football. And that's the beauty of pick'em. You can track your picks and your wins while you enjoy the game. Now, if you're not on Underdog yet, scan the QR code on your screen or use our code FELLAS when you sign up, because new customers will get $50 in bonus funds when you play your first $5 on the app. Plus, Underdog will give you a free pick to use in your first entry. Again, that's code FELLAS over on Underdog. Now let's get you back to the rest of the show. Alrighty, fellas, we have been flying along here. Running back starts, running back sits, wide receiver starts. Let's talk about some wide receiver sits before we get to some streaming options for week one if you totally punted on quarterback or tight end. Cameron, Juwan Jennings, your sit in week one. It might be a gimme.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see how the news unfolds here for Juwan Jennings. Hopefully by the time this goes up, we're recording this late Tuesday evening so we can all be on this show. I have some commitments tomorrow evening on Wednesday, but hopefully by the time you see this on Thursday, Juwan Jennings is in for week one.
Yeah, he's back at practice as of yesterday. So,
yes.
He is back with the team. I'm shocked at how high Underdog has for his fantasy points projected, higher than Golden. I mean, I'll give him the. Everyone's saying he's higher than Keenan Allen, but higher than Michael Pittman for a guy who's going to maybe practice 4 days. That's my concern. We saw this with Brandon Ayuk, who Ty, you talked about a couple of times, was here almost a full week back at practice than Juwan Jennings just was this season. And last year, week one, Brandon Ayuk, 5 targets, 2 receptions, 28 yards. We know Kyle Shanahan holds a grudge. We know how hard it is to come back after no practice. So at best, you're probably hoping Juwan Jennings is the 4th target in the San Francisco offense behind Kittle, Ricky Pearsall, and Christian McCaffrey. I just don't want to take that risk because, sure, maybe he catches a long touchdown, he saves it for you. But for me, it feels a lot more likely that he puts up that 3.8 half PPR fantasy points because he's just not game ready. He's a 4th option. Ricky Pearsall's got the rapport Brock Purdy's got the rapport with those other 3 guys throughout the season. So I just don't think it's worth the risk because you probably took him as your wide receiver 4, maybe wide receiver 5 anyways.
I just think this is a colossal Christian McCaffrey spot. I mean, he feasts on the Seattle Seahawks, man, since joining the 49ers. He's had no less than 74 rushing yards in each game against the 49ers. I believe his average is nearly 110 total yards per game against the Seahawks. He's going to find the end zone once, if not twice. I just don't know if the 49ers are going to need to throw the ball and make sure Juwan Jennings is involved in this game, Ty.
Yeah, I'm kind of concerned for how all the receivers will play against this Seattle offense, or sorry, a defense. What I'm talking about, the Niners offense. And that is in part due to Christian McCaffrey just being an absolute beast against Seattle. So I think I would still give the edge to Ricky, even with a tougher matchup with like Devon Witherspoon in the slot. But
Yep.
For a guy that's been practicing more regularly than Juwan Jennings, has been getting nothing but praise out of San Francisco. I think, again, my edge would go to Ricky Pearsall if you got to start one of the Niners receivers, and I'm cool letting Jennings just kind of grow into the offense a little bit, because I'm going to hedge my bets and say that there's going to be some grudges with Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah, and growing into the offense, not necessarily of learning it, but growing into, hey, he has been practicing and just like needs to get up to speed with the rest of the offense coming into the year. I'll come right back to you, Ty. Khalil Shakir been dealing with a high ankle sprain during the preseason. Seems like he's locked in, ready to go for week 1, but not so fast, you say.
Yeah, you could call this the low-hanging fruit. You could say that I'm a cherry picker for talking about Khalil Shakir and having him as a sit, but
I actually don't know if it is, though, considering the Ravens Bills have the highest projected point total, 50 and a half. 50 and a half. That's a lot of yards and points.
So that's ultimately why I ended up choosing Shakir as a sit. I should say choosing Shakir to be considered as a sit, because I'm just worried about the ankle. So while the matchup, again, against Baltimore, and Baltimore's kind of, their secondary is also kind of this weird influx kind of I don't even know if I can call it a rotation. I mean, Jair Alexander is now in Baltimore, but who knows how healthy, if he's even going to play. There's so many unknowns when it comes to the matchup with Baltimore secondary with the ankle. I'm okay sitting Shakir. And if he proves me wrong, it's like 10 targets and puts up 90 yards, then he proves me wrong. But then we know, going forward, like Shakir should be in contention then to be in your lineups almost every week.
Yeah, I think that's the one spot where you could see Khalil Shakir smashes, just because of how many points are scored in this game. But coming off the high ankle sprain, I wouldn't expect it. The pick'em lobby doesn't necessarily suggest he's going to have a massive game. 47.5 is his projection on receiving yards. I'm not super excited to be forcing Shakir into my lineup this week, Cam.
Yeah, he last season only had 3 games, about 15 points in half PPR. Only half his games were in double digits. So you're not losing out on something if he does have a great Khalil Shakir game, right? He's not a guy that's all of a sudden going to win you the week if it's phenomenal. So I agree with you from that perspective. It's probably just not worth the risk with the unknown of how the ankle can be. If he is healthy, though, he's someone I'd monitor closer to Saturday. If they're like, no pitch count, he's 100%. I think you start him.
Yeah.
Just because, like you said, Lucas, the projected total, the fact that this probably is going to be one of the highest scoring games of the week. But
just
even if it is that, it's just you're just not going to miss out on a lot if it is a touchdown, if it is a 10 target game from Khalil Shakir.
No, 100%. Monitor Khalil Shakir's status, what his potential usage could be going into week 1. But if not a lot comes out, or even there's a word of a pitch count going into week 1, that's when you can probably be safe keeping Khalil Shakir on your bench. Look, I understand a lot of people were probably excited to draft Calvin Ridley this year. I understand you probably want to play him right away in week 1. We've talked about him as a great bounce back candidate for this year, a potential league winner for this year, a guy who could really get in sync with Cam Ward and be this year's Terry McLaurin. But 2 words, Pat Surtain. That's it. That's all I got for you.
Yeah, I don't want to agree.
You don't have to. But I'm looking at a rookie quarterback, Cam Ward, playing against CB1 in the NFL. Probably going to be shadowing Calvin Ridley the entire game. I got no interest.
Yeah, it's probably the right call. It would be. I don't. Again, this feels like
if you can afford to sit Calvin Ridley, maybe that's what I'll add. If you can afford to, I'm okay if you do.
This feels like DeAndre Swift to me. I understand.
I tried to get a little little
And
bit risky
it's
here in
the
week
issue
one.
is it's probably the right
Or
call
a lot.
again. Like you probably are. I just don't think I could. I think if I drafted Ridley, I'm starting him this week, which I have in a couple leagues. I'm going to be starting him, but I do understand that it might be big disappointment. You know, he had held everybody to no points last year, so could it happen again? 100%. And Cam Ward's first game isn't exactly ideal to face this defense.
That's exactly it. Ty, anything you want to chime in with or take a stab at disagreeing with me on? I'm not saying I'm ultimately like 100% right, but I'll let you get your words in here too.
I think it's just a very risky play with Ridley. Like, I can definitely see a world where Ridley, that Surtain isn't shadowing Ridley in some weird way, and he can still get like 7 catches.
Ooh.
Whoa, Elick Aomanor.
Elick
Hey,
Aomanor. Ooh.
come on, man. Hey, put some respect.
Van Jefferson. Ooh.
My streamer at tight end. I like it. Hey, no.
For this reason.
Gunnar Helm.
Gunnar Helm.
Hopefully his ankles recover now. But it's risky because, again, I can see the 7 receptions because Surtain isn't shadowing him, but I can also see Surtain shadowing him, and Ridley is only going to get like 3 catches for like 40 yards.
If you can afford to sit Calvin Ridley this week, I'm very okay. If you said Calvin Ridley this week, that's where I'm going to land. Pat Surtain is just CB1 man. After seeing what he did last year, it's tough to have a ton of confidence in Calvin Ridley going into week 1. Let's close it out, fellas. The change that we're making to this episode this year is that we're not doing starts and sits at quarterback and tight end, but rather some streaming options to help you all out. Typically, we like to try and provide streamers earlier in the week on the waiver wire so you can go scoop them up. But for the sake of the episode, maybe this is more of a affirmation to whoever you picked up, or maybe a double check on the waiver wire to see, okay, did anybody scoop these guys up? Maybe I can go ahead and fire them up this week. But Cameron, your streaming option, you're sticking with the same team as your running back start. Frankly, I really can't blame you for making Trevor Lawrence your streaming guy this week at quarterback.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a sloppy game on the defensive side for both teams. So I think points are going to be put up probably out of spite of the offenses. But Trevor Lawrence has enough rushing upside himself as well. We saw, that was a big thing with Baker last year, is that he hit his career high in rushing yards, rushing attempts. So you're hoping that, T-Law comes over, gets a little bit of that magic as well. But yeah, I think if you punted on quarterback, I think T-Law is the guy for me when I was looking for guys who are under 50% roster right now. He was the guy that I was like, yes, he is who, I'm going to bet on throwing 2 touchdowns, bet on getting some rushing upside.
The over has hit in 6 of the last 7 games for the Carolina Panthers. So Cameron, when you talk about potentially sloppy defensively, both sides of the ball, yeah, points could be put up in this game when the over-under is set at 46.5 as well. You better believe that's probably going to come from the arm of Trevor Lawrence as well. So I'm with you. I do like Trevor Lawrence as a streaming option this week if you totally kick the can on quarterback and you're playing matchups each week. Ty, what about you? Bryce Young, same game, other side of the ball.
Other side of the ball, maybe this is just me kind of drinking the Kool-Aid that we are going to continue to see the growth in this Carolina offense from week 1, but I think this matchup against Jacksonville it's really good. It's kind of unfortunate that it's Trevor Lawrence and Bryce Young that get some of the better matchups of the week, because odds are you're probably not starting them because you took a guy in the draft and you're confident that they can be a top 12 guy in the week. But hey, let's say again you punted and you landed on a Tua or you landed on a Michael Penix. I would say Trevor Lawrence, but my preference would be Bryce Young. Having Tet is only going to help him out, gives him a true red zone threat in the offense, in the passing game at least. And again, this Jacksonville matchup is really, really nice for him.
Yeah, very, very nice matchup against Jacksonville. And if you're going to, again, go with the trend of the overcashing in 6 of the last 7 in Carolina Panthers games, Bryce Young is going to have a part to play in that as well. Justin Fields is going to be my stream of the week, and not because I'm confident in his arm, but because if you look on your screen, 43.5 rushing yards is his projection for the week. His chance of scoring a rushing or receiving touchdown this week is set at 1.28 multiplier on the higher. For most quarterbacks, that is set substantially higher. This is purely a bet on the mobility of Justin Fields. That's all this is in a game against Pittsburgh, where I don't necessarily anticipate for him to have a lot of success in the air necessarily, but I'm all for just taking the bet on guys with rushing upside in a week where, like, I'm not confident in starting Michael Penix against Tampa Bay. I'm not really ready to go that far. If you're looking for a guy, you got Fields, and you drafted him, just throw him in your lineup this week. I think he'll give you enough with his legs.
Yeah, he's one of maybe the only quarterbacks that you're hoping his offensive line is bad, just so he's out of the pocket more and he's scrambling and scoring touchdowns because you don't think the throwing's going to be great, even if the pocket's clean. So, yeah, I agree. The rushing upside's so good that he's a guy that I think you could find an excuse to put him in your lineup pretty much every single week.
I am curious to hear what the people think of us making this change over to streamers at quarterback and tight end, and instead of doing a start and a sit each week. Let us know in the comments if you've been watching our content over the last year, if that's like a change that you're grateful we made. We used to start with quarterbacks at the top, and I'm sure a lot of you were like, dude, I'm done 5 minutes into this. What the heck are these dudes doing starting with quarterbacks? Or if you do want quarterback starts and sits back, let us know. We're open to tweaking this episode a little bit, but hopefully could save you all a little bit of time and add a little bit more value to the content by specifically talking about streamers and not, telling you to sit CJ Stroud when he's had 3 bad weeks in a row, right? So let's close it out here, fellas, quickly with some tight end streamers for the week. Cameron, a good old reliable Hunter Henry. I always think it's just a good option if you ever need someone to plug and play.
Yeah, I think it's just a bet on Drake May continue to take a step forward. It's a bet on Josh McDaniels, likes to get his tight ends involved. Hunter Henry played well with Drake May over the back half of the season last year. So it's just kind of all of those things. And then you add in, if you listen to yesterday's waiver wire video, we talked about Kyle Williams, and you're hoping he steps in as the wide receiver too, but it could just be like a Green Bay mix where you don't really have one. And that's where Hunter Henry again steps up. So with any streamer tight end, I think we'll say this for every guy forever, is if he scores a touchdown, obviously it's great. I think he gets enough volume where you're not hurting even without a touchdown.
Ty, we talked about Calvin Ridley being a sit, but because of Pat Surtain, I really don't mind Chigakonkwo being a streamer this week if the Titans are going to be chasing points.
If you had to guess where Denver ranked in terms of receptions allowed last year to tight ends, where would you guess?
Weren't they worst?
They were, I believe they were bottom
for at least a while. I remember
for a long time. They ended up being 8th in receptions allowed.
Okay.
So again, if Calvin Ridley is going to be getting locked up by Pat Surtain, you got to throw the ball to somebody. And I'm not going to lie, I saw more Chigakonkwo and Cam Ward connection tweets than I did with Cam Ward and Calvin Ridley. So maybe we benefit on some early season chemistry between Chigakonkwo and Cam Ward.
Yeah, if you totally kick the can on tight end, you drafted like 3 to close out your draft because you're just like, I just don't care. These dudes don't separate enough. Yeah, I don't mind if you got to fire up Chig this week. Fellas, can I convince you on Kyle Pitts this week?
Oh, already did.
The 101. The 101 in fantasy football drafts. What if I told you that Kyle Pitts is sneaky a Tampa Bay Buccaneers killer? What if I told you that? 2 games last season.
There.
Sneaky. 2 games last year. 88 receiving yards, 91 receiving yards in their second matchup in October 27th. 2 touchdowns for Kyle Pitts in that game. Kyle Pitts.
Touchdowns.
Kyle Pitts has scored a third of his career touchdowns against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He scored 3 against Tampa Bay. He scored 10 for his career, so a little bit less than a third, but I digress. He averages 67 yards against the Bucs for his career. Look, I think you got significantly worse options than Kyle Pitts this week that you could fire up into your lineup. If you're looking for what's his higher or lower on Underdog, 7.15, look, man, All Kyle Pitts has to do is score and give you 2 catches for 15 yards, and he's there. I don't mind that this week. I think if you need just 8 points, I think Kyle Pitts can get that for you. And I know that's a big ask for Kyle Pitts sometimes.
I like it. I like it a lot. If we were doing tight end starts still, he would have been my tight end start, but I thought it was too obvious, so that's why I didn't do him.
Oh, really? You thought it was too obvious?
Of course you did.
But I do like him as a streamer. I think
you can stream Kyle Pitts this week. We'll put a pin in it there. Again, really curious to hear your thoughts on this newly constructed episode. We're going to provide this show to you every week, but we're open to changing the structure. So if you want to make sure you get access to it, you see the changes or any tweaks we make in the future, hit that subscribe button, turn the notification bell as well, so you know when all of our newest content is up. Not only are we doing this video every week, we got trade targets for you coming every week. We're reacting to every week with you all. I almost said reacting to your reactions, but really we're reacting in unison with you all to every week of the NFL season, taking in your hot takes, reacting to those as well. And as the season goes on, we'll talk about, league winners, second half league winners. We'll talk about rest of the season wide receiver rankings. We have so much fun content planned for you all throughout the season. So appreciate it if you join us for this fantasy football season and beyond. If you want to follow our other socials as well, FF Fellas on Twitter, the FF Fellas on Instagram, Fantasy Football Fellas on Facebook and TikTok. If you are a YouTube truther through and through, Fantasy Football Fellas Shorts, where you can see some revamped content over there. I'm not doing the shorts bit because we're literally recording this right after we did our waiver video. I'm wearing the exact same thing. So you just have to go check out the waiver video if you want to know what shorts I am wearing today. You can follow our personal socials as well. I'm at Lucas Wenzel on X, Camlaw FFF for Cameron, Tyler _Plath for Ty. We did it. We're here. Best of luck in your week 1 matchups. If you want some start sit advice to kick off the season, we will be live on Sunday to answer all of your questions. We really should have talked about that earlier in the episode. Can't believe it's a shame. I'm rusty. I'm rusty on when we insert promos in here, fellas, but we will have a start sit live stream Sunday morning as well for all of your last minute questions. So another reason to hang out with us and hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you know when we go live. Appreciate you all. We're excited for this season. Let's go win some leagues this year, y'all. Deuces.
Deuces.